Attention in the talk. Hello, everybody. This is the talk. I'm Sleeveless Mike. In the middle, we have Evo, and on my right, we're going to have Coop, and we are back. This is the new show that we are running. Different kind of show than you're normally going to see from this program, but also a different kind of show than Evo and I are used to doing. We do sports talks, but we wanted to add a new show into our repertoire, talk about, pop culture, funny things that we find on the internet. But today, we're actually going to kind of change the tone even a little bit more. We've had a serious talk on this show before when we were talking about some of our time in the military. Some of that's going to probably get brought up again today. But we're going to talk about the things that are going on with Israel and Palestine, Hamas, and all the players and what is happening in the Middle East right now. So I just want to warn everybody that today's show is not necessarily going to be your funny, happy-go-lucky type thing. There's going to be some probably wildly inappropriate jokes tossed in. That's what you can expect when you get three veterans together. But that is what the show is. But before we start diving into all the conversation, boys, how we doing? It's been a little while since we got to get on here and knock one of these out. I'm excited. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be here. How are you fellas doing? It's a Monday, right? I can't keep track of my days anymore.
I'm doing great. It is Monday, and been all right. I just went to Nashville this past weekend. Got to see good old N. Husen and Stephanie. That was nice to see them.
Very cool.
Have some drinks out there, so it's been pretty good.
It's a great city, man. I love Nashville.
Yeah,
I've never been, and I want to go. I hear great things all the time, but
maybe all three of us go and we host a show there.
Sure.
Well, we're going to probably need to be in Jason Aldean's bar the way this show goes.
I went there this past weekend. Yeah, it was a good time.
But it's what time is it for you guys out there? East Coast time right now.
So I'm 6:45, Matt. I believe you are an hour behind me, right?
Yeah. I'm at that 5:45.
All right, and it for me, it's not even 4 o'clock yet. But I don't know about y'all. I'm already having my libation because I feel like it's necessary for today. So. This is thanks to our boy Roberto Gasolini, Goose. It's a plastic jug of whiskey, I believe, early times or something like that. That he didn't want to bring with him out there on his trip to Alabama.
Roberto, I was with him all last week, actually.
So. You're lucky. I'm sure his thighs are still nice and thick.
Very luscious.
Dude, that man has the greatest, thick beard that I've ever seen. I feel pretty good about my goddamn beard. Evo, you got a great beard. Matt, you got a beard.
Yeah, it's it's kind of a beard. It is what it is.
Yeah,
she's patchy, but she's there.
That Goose's beard is so fucking thick.
All of his hair fell off the top of his head down to his beard and kind of resided.
It literally just fell in his.
Yeah, but before he left, he gave me all of his booze and all of his drinks. So. This past weekend, I cleared 3 bottles out, and now I'm on to number 4, which is early times. Cheap plastic bottle whiskey with some Coke. So that should do me for the day. But are you boys having some drinks as well?
Of course, always. Today we're breaking open some Eagle Rare 10-year.
Oh, damn.
So and we're gonna see how this goes down tonight on a Monday.
All righty.
Yeah, and so Mike? I'm still not drinking liquor just yet. I did have my first glass of liquor yesterday during an event. But I do not have any liquor tonight. I haven't bought any liquor in quite some time. So I'm just doing big old Simply Lemonade. I got 2 of them. I am not partaking in the gummies tonight because of the nature of what we're going to talk about. I'm going to need to be more coherent. And not necessarily flying on cloud 45 while we're having this conversation.
This is not
45. Is that something? Is there a reference to that? I'm not tracking. Is that something to do with President Trump?
No, it's not. It has nothing to do with President Trump. There we go. Let's get fucking started, boys.
Yeah,
absolutely. You might as well go pop a gummy now. But if you guys want to get rolling into this, might as well go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So. I forget that it was October 7th, I believe.
Oh gosh, I want to say it was the 7th. It's
something
been
like that. I should probably know. It was my dad's birthday. I was actually out in Ohio, having a nice Red Lobster lunch with my woman and her kids.
It was the day after my birthday.
When everything started popping off on my phone, Israel has been attacked by Hamas. And this isn't necessarily new, something that we haven't seen before in our lifetimes. Israel is pretty much in constant conflict with the Muslim nations around them, and Hamas and other terrorist organizations. I'll be clear about that. I do believe Hamas to be a terrorist organization, but there's been a lot of weird, I don't know, you want to call it conjecture, a lot of uneducated backgrounds to trying to push a narrative one way or the other, which, doesn't help the situation. The brass tacks of it is that the Israeli people, there's Israelis dying, there's Americans who have died over there, but there's a lot of misinformation kind of floating around, specifically with the past and why all of this is happening. So if it's okay with you boys, I've got a little segment here kind of ready for us to kind of go through the history of this region, of Israel, of the Jews, of the Muslims in this area, and why there's this tension.
Yeah, absolutely, brother.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a little graphic up here for you because it's going to make this a little bit more palatable, I believe. But Israel, as you can see here, is the only Jewish nation in the world, and it actually didn't officially exist until 1948. Both Jews and Muslims have strong religious and cultural ties to this region, dating back almost 4,000 years to Abraham, who is considered to be the father of both of these religions. According to the Old Testament, God told Abraham and his people to settle in a land called Canaan, which is the approximate region of modern-day Israel. In about 1000 BC, King Saul established the Israelite monarchy, which continued under King David and his son Solomon, who ended up building the first Jewish temple in Jerusalem. This historical legacy became part of the Jewish claim to the land of Israel. The land continued to be conquered and ruled by various groups, including the Persians, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Egyptians, Fatimids, Seljuks, I don't know if I'm saying that right, the Crusaders, the Mamluks, and finally the Ottomans, who ended up calling that region Palestine. It would later become home to many sites considered to be sacred by Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike. During these transitions, Jews were essentially forced to flee the area, creating what's known as a diaspora, or a dispersion of people from their homeland. A lot of these Jews ended up going into Europe. In Europe, the Jewish diaspora faced a lot of oppression and persecution. And so in the 1880s, a lot of Jewish people started making that pilgrimage or emigrating back to their promised land in the Ottoman Empire-controlled land of Palestine. By 1914, there were more than 75,000 Jews living in that area of Palestine. After World War I, Great Britain ended up taking control of what is known as modern-day Israel, Palestine, and Jordan from the Ottomans. In 1922, the League of Nations approved a British declaration that promised a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. But it would be more than 2 decades before we would see any of that promise fulfilled. 1939 comes around, World War II breaks out, and more than 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust, with millions more being displaced. A lot of those displaced Jews ended up going to Israel. In 1947, after the war was over, the United Nations decided to partition up what was now Palestine, or still Palestine, into 2 separate countries, the Jewish state of Israel and the Arab state of Palestine. Israel ended up agreeing to this partition, and the borders were drawn out for 2 states, but many of the Arab residents thought that the partition was very unfavorable and unfairly favored the Jewish population, probably because of what had just happened in World War II. Is why they felt like they were getting more than they were due. But this caused violence to start to break out. And then on May 14th in 1948, the state of Israel was officially established. Almost immediately, the Arab League, which was a group of surrounding Arab countries, rejected those partitions and attacked Israel. Israel fought them back, and for more than 9 months, and its armed forces ended up occupying a lot of the land designated to become the Arab state of Palestine. So this is kind of when Israelis started to move outside of what was originally considered to be their borders, when it was broken up into two states. Egypt ended up taking control of the Gaza Strip. Jordan, which was then called Transjordan, took control of the West Bank. The original plan was for Palestinian state. It was completely scrapped. This event was a victory for many Jewish people, but approximately 720,000 Arabs ended up fleeing or were expelled from their homes, with many of them taking refuge in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. The war would be remembered in Hebrew as the War of Independence, and for the Arabs, it was known as the catastrophe. Tension between the Jews and the Arabs, Arab Muslims in the region, just continued for decades after that. Fighting between Israel and its Arab neighbors continued on and off for nearly 60 years. And then in 1964, the PLO, or the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which was formed to consolidate the power of many small Palestinian groups in the area, they started in 64, the PLO was formed. In 1967, the 6-Day War, which a lot of us that's originally where my history of all of this kind of picked up, where I kind of started learning about this in high school and whatnot. But in 67, the 6-Day War in Israel happened. Israel ended up defeating the armies of Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, and gained control of significant territory in that area. In 1987, following an incident with Israeli defense forces that left 4 Palestinian refugees dead, the Palestinian militia led a violent uprising, which was known as the First Intifada, that resulted in hundreds of deaths. After the First Intifada, Israel and the PLO created a timetable. They came together, created a timetable for peace known as the Oslo Accords. Further peace talks in 2000 were proven unsuccessful. And when the agreement could not be reached on issues like the status of Jerusalem, the rights of refugees, and increased Jewish settlements in the Palestinian lands. Later that year, Ariel Sharon, who would become Israel's prime minister, ended up visiting the Temple Mount, which is home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. And that was an act that many Palestinians found very offensive, and it caused violent protests, riots, attacks, and suicide bombings. This period of violence became known as the Second Intifada and lasted almost 5 years and ended up marking the end of any sort of peace that had originally been set out from the Oslo Accords. That violence ended in roughly around 2005 when Israel ended up withdrawing from the Gaza Strip. In 2006, a militant Sunni Islamic group known as Hamas ended up winning the Palestinian legislative elections. Most countries, and myself, consider Hamas to be a terrorist group because of the methods that they use. They carry out suicide bombings, call for the destruction of Israel, and then Hamas and Israel continue to clash violently ever since that time. In 2017, Hamas ended up calling for the formation of a Palestinian state using the 1967 established borders, but it did not formally recognize Israel as a state. So because of this, Israel didn't accept that. And today, Palestine continues to fight for its statehood, while the conflict is further complicated by the Israelis, who ended up moving outside of what those boundaries were, and they're settling into the West Bank. And this is probably where most of our modern misinformation kind of comes from. The things that Israel is doing to move into the West Bank is less than nice. But several countries have been pushing for peace agreements between the Palestinians, or this Arab League, and Israel. Most of them are suggesting a solution involving 2 states, kind of like originally conceptualized. However, nothing has happened from that. And that kind of leads us up to just the constant tension, the constant fighting that we have seen over the past, 5 years, decades, longer. And that leads us up to October 7th, where we essentially had a very large scale Hamas attack on Israel.
All right.
And that's a little bit of our history of the area.
Yeah. Important to know the history, because I think, like most people, like you don't really think about the things that happened 100, 200, 3 thousands of years ago. We see things 6 inches in front of our face. But this has been going on for an incredibly long time. This is not something new. Both sides have been hostile towards each other, and like when you talk about what is going on, you hear these buzzwords of Zionism, anti-Zionist, and I'm not sure everybody understands what that means. So a Zionist is, or somebody, or Zionism is somebody who believes that the Jewish people are entitled to their own state, right? That Israel should exist, because all of the things that have happened to the Jewish people, while it is a religion, it is also an ethnic group of people, and they should be able to have their own place. Whereas somebody who is anti-Zionist does not believe that Jews should have their own place to reside, and this is it gets very, very muddy. I'm going to tell everybody right now that I'm going to say some things during this show. They're going to be very uncouth, and people are not going to fucking like it. But before I start getting crazy, Matt, do you have anything to add before we start kind of getting into this conversation about where they were, what could have happened, and that led up to where the fuck it is that we're at now?
I think you kind of already nailed it a little bit there. Misinformation is the name of the game, right now, as far as the general public goes. And just like you see all these protests, you see everything happening right now on from the Palestinian side. And I haven't seen a lot on the Jewish side of it, but, I think the main news has picked up most of those riots that support Palestine. But you see a lot of misled people in those groups that don't really know what they're fighting or arguing or rioting about. And I say riots, I'm just meaning protests, really. Some of them sure broken out to that level too, but protests, and it is, you're right as an American to protest if that's what you deem necessary, but not understanding what the heck you're even talking about or what you're even fighting for is the issue, I think, at hand with that. But
yeah. Look, for me personally, I don't think that there is a simple, easy solution to Israel, Palestine, and the lands involved. Because when it comes down to it, the Ottoman Empire, which owned the land of Palestine before, Ottoman Empire lost in World War I. They lost, and typically what happens when a country loses a war is they lose something more than just their soldiers on the battlefield. They'll usually lose some land, especially the further back in time that you go, the more often that happens, right? For better or worse, the Ottoman Empire lost some land and it was given over to the Jews and formed in Israel. And of course, they're probably not going to like that. But that's kind of that deciding point for me of like, hey, this is why Jewish people deserve their own state. They were given it after the end of a war where the Ottoman Empire rightfully lost some of its land.
Well, and even with that, Evo, at that point they were given it, and then later on they got it. They tried to take it away from them, the 6 Day War, and they kicked their asses. And so they defended it. So it's not like Israel's been holding on to their part of the land based solely off of that instance at the end of that World War.
But I think it brings up kind of two major conversations that are both tied together and diametrically separate. And it's the separation of Israel and Palestine and how that should go forward. Right. And I think that is a conversation in and of itself. But when we're talking about what happened on October 7th, those attacks, I 100% condemn. Was that Palestine? Not necessarily. But was it Hamas? Yes. And where is Hamas? They're in Palestine. If you want to have a conversation about, and that's where I think, again, a lot of this misinformation comes from, is if people want to have a conversation about how to correctly split up this country and start having both sides act civilized. Because I will say that Israel and the Jewish people in Israel have not been the most kind through a lot of what's going on here. Some of the stuff as far as them moving into that West Bank and stuff like that, they will go in and dehome Palestinian families. They will walk in and say, this is my house now, and kick them out. And if they say no, Israeli army comes in and says otherwise. Like, it isn't always nice. And I'm not saying that there isn't fault to be spread out here. Just like as Americans, we have a very rough history in a lot of ways. We weren't good to the natives, you know, we weren't good to African Americans who we brought over here. Like, we have a bad history, but that doesn't mean that you should throw out the baby with the bathwater or anything like that. The separation of Israel and Palestine, that is kind of a separate conversation. I think too many people are bleeding that into what's happening right now, where Israel is being attacked by a terrorist organization. Yes. And they are, I mean, the image I put up doesn't fully show the odds against Israel in this. They are completely surrounded, like that little white girl on the couch with the 5 black dudes behind her, and we all know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
yes, we do.
That's Israel right now, and they are constantly having to fight off those big dudes.
Those 12-inch anacondas.
And so they are taking very aggressive actions in order to protect themselves, because they do truly feel like their backs are against the wall, and I understand that. And that's where the conversation can come into play. Is Israel doing too much? Maybe, but at the same time, if I was put in the same situation, I'm throwing every haymaker I got.
Well, I think another big. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say. So, and this is where it's going to start to get a little rough for some people. All right. So, Evo, I absolutely agree. Hamas is absolutely 100% a terrorist organization. Anybody who is trying to justify otherwise doesn't understand the way a terrorist organization works. It works by manipulating the population, by enforcing your will on the population, getting them to almost get into a Stockholm syndrome where they have to help you, have to do these things, and then it becomes part of their nature. But Palestinians also have a little bit of blame in Hamas taking over, because apparently there were free elections that were held and they fucking selected them. So you have a group of people who are now voting for a terrorist organization. That, to me, spells that there is a fucking problem with that entire region and the mindset that is going on with these people. Now, if we wanted to have 2 separate states, I know I'm for 2 separate states. I think most people who, with a little bit of knowledge, would probably be for 2 separate states. But we could have already had that. This was in the plan, and the Palestinians fumbled the fucking bag. They had it. They had their land. They had a shot. They had a shot twice. And they refused to do it because of their hatred for the Jewish people. So why are we trying to prop these people up and defend them when their MO is to say, fuck everybody who's Jewish, we'll take the land, but we're not going to recognize them. There's not going to be peace if they get a second state. So that makes it very tough to back these people. I'm not for Israel going in and taking civilians who have no business being like in this conflict out of their homes. That is wrong. But Hamas is not like exactly helping the situation by convincing these people to stay in their homes, to stay there, to be martyrs according to their Islamic faith. And they are the ones who are making these people be in harm's way. Israel has the right to defend themselves. They are allowed to cause civilian casualties to a certain extent. Like when you talk about war crimes and those things, they have given ample warning to civilian populations in the area to get out of there. Now, it's not exactly easy because Israel has made it incredibly fucking hard to do so. But like when we start hearing some of this, like people in Israel are being like committing war crimes, I don't understand that, because they're trying to wipe out a terrorist organization that has continued to threaten them, and then the people in that region voted them into power.
Well, let's not forget how Hitler came into power. He was voted in too, and you're absolutely right with that, Mike. And when it comes to that, they're not going to get anywhere. Both sides will have innocent blood on their hands. Period.
Yeah,
they're at war. And I don't know if we're going to get into our opinions on the support of this as a nation, but they're at war, and it kind of, I don't think that we as Americans or even as America should be telling Israel to hold back or telling them what to do at all. I think that they just need to do what they need to do, and Palestine, like, you know what, you guys, I think they kind of just need to duke it out, let it happen, you know. Because
I mean,
it's
to
not
some
going to
extent,
stop until, like, you're right, to some extent. I'm just
because
saying,
the
though.
thing is that Israel is not necessarily a superpower, but they are technologically advanced. Everyone has done military service, so their whole country, 18 and older, is fighters. They
What
are
happens
ready to
when
fight.
Mexico starts sending rockets over the border to America?
I mean,
I mean, we would roll them in 24 hours.
That's what
And
I mean.
honestly,
I mean,
Israel could do the same to
with
know,
our
Hamas.
president, I don't know what's going to happen.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
but but you get what I'm saying, though. Like,
That's the thing, is that Israel probably could
100%.
glass the earth around them if they wanted to. So in a way, they're already playing with kid gloves. The problem is that they do that, and the rest of the Arab world steps in, and
Iran,
that's the
Jordan,
scary part.
Syria,
And
Egypt, and they are completely fucking surrounded.
Sure.
that to me is a big part of the conversation too, because in general, Hamas is funded by Iran.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Iranian trained militants, they take off the Iranian army uniform and then they go fight their jihad on as Hamas. And that's part of the problem here, is that we faced this in Afghanistan. We faced it when fighting ISIS in Iraq. They're not wearing a uniform. You can have a guy walking down the street looking like a normal person, and he could be a normal person 6 days out of the week. And on that seventh day, he's going to try to get his jihad on. You just don't know. And that's kind of the situation that you're fitting into here. Like Mike brought up, the people that are there in Palestine, staying in their homes, you don't know. Like, at the end of the day, they are Palestinian. They could be supporters of Hamas. They could be Hamas. You just don't know. And so if they're giving them fair warning, saying, hey, you are basically in a war zone now. If you want to leave, leave. If you don't, you are considered hostile. I mean, we have done this in other places like Iraq, where we put quiet hours out. If you're outside after this time, you're dead. You're a bad guy. You're dead.
Dude, going into this
we
area,
rolled into Afghanistan, like if and this is kind of our job specific. When we rolled into Afghanistan, I was not there when the invasion happened, but I have heard from some dudes that are a little older. If you were digging on the side of the road, didn't matter what you were doing, you were getting got.
Right.
You're getting a hellfire driven up your ass because you were a potential combatant. Like, and it's tough. People don't want to hear this.
There was just a chance that you were like
yeah, and people are not going to want to hear this. But that is the cold, ugly truth of war. Is that
the saying
like this happen.
War is nice and fun. No. The saying is war is hell.
Yeah, and honestly, war is worse than hell, because in hell there are no people who are fucking innocent. In war, there are always people who are innocent, who are
the fun thing about hell for me is that apparently there's a special place for me there.
Right. No, there is. No, yeah, I agree. I agree. And that's kind of what I'm getting at is, it's gonna get, in order for it to get better, it's gonna get fucking ugly, and it's gonna get messy. And how do we, for one, is it our place to change that? I mean, you said it yourself. Israel is a superpower of the world, or one of
that region,
of that region, right? So they aren't ignorant to cause and effect, unlike Hamas, and how they're like, okay, just kill as many as you can. Obviously, if they were ignorant to it, then they probably already would have leveled Giza, right, or Gaza, or however the hell you say
Gaza.
It. Right,
Gyoza, they're the little dumplings from Korea.
You know what I'm saying, though.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying. So I don't
Gaza
think
Strip.
I don't think it goes absent on their mind, So, but at the same time, I think that like, who are like, because you've heard some political figures speak, like they need to keep their head level, and make sure that they're holding back, and they shouldn't be doing this and that and the third. And I'm like, you know what? Who are we to tell them what they should do. Like, what do we do to defend our American citizens? You know what I mean? Like,
Matt, I agree with you. Like, where are we in this position, and why are these politicians saying to have a ceasefire? Because I think a ceasefire is the absolute wrong answer.
Well, because only one side's going to cease firing.
Correct. Yeah. But we also can't have what I believe a sitting U.S. senator on national TV saying that we're in a holy war. Like 100%. That is the stupidest fucking thing that could have come out of somebody's mouth, because we're not in a holy war.
Yeah, we are in any war.
Yeah. So look, I don't get it.
At the end of the day, we are involved whether we want to be or not, because we're in the region. We are friends with Israel, and I believe that we should be.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that we can't try to mend some fences, if you want to put it that way. I mean, that's a super, super light-handed way to put it. But like acting as a referee essentially would be nice, but they're not going to listen to us because we are allied with Israel. We're not allied with Iran, and Iran is who's backing Hamas. But we're going to get pulled into this one way or the other, because this whole region is a powder keg. If you guys aren't aware, we still have soldiers and military forces in Iraq. Yep. All right. Iraq has been rocketed in the past 24 hours, specifically Al-Assad Air Base. Al-Assad Air Base also had 3 drones, Hezbollah-backed drones. Hezbollah also funded by Iran. And where are they getting that technology? Iran. They had 2 of them go towards Al-Assad Air Base, packed with explosives, and 1 go towards another Iraqi base. And we still have people here. Now, those drones were allegedly shot down that were going towards Al-Assad. I have anecdotal evidence against that. But the one that was going towards that other Iraqi base ended up hitting, and there was some dead and wounded. Now, I have seen, I'll call it secondhand video from people who are there right now at Al-Assad, walking around a hangar, having the alarms go off, and seeing a big fucking mushroom cloud go off inside the walls of the base from one of those drones. So whether or not they actually took them all out, who knows? I know of one Department of Army civilian, one DAC there on Al-Assad, that did die from that attack. It was from a heart attack, but still.
Okay. All right, good.
And many others who are wounded. All right. But we're getting pulled into this one way or the other. The leader of Hamas called for a day of jihad shortly after that invasion. And it wasn't jihad against Israel. It was a global day of jihad going against anyone that they view as the enemy. All right. Basically, we're getting pulled into this one way or the other.
Well, yeah, 100%. I don't necessarily think that we're not gonna have some role to play for sure. You know,
even if it's a proxy war situation like what we're doing with Ukraine, we're gonna be involved.
Right. Like what is that role?
You have other backings from other Russian and the entire geopolitical situation that is going on in the Middle East right now is a goddamn catastrophe. And for my own selfish reasons, and Matt, you're probably going to share a little bit of this sentiment. I want this to happen, and I want it to happen soon. I want this war to go off soon, because it almost certainly is going to happen at some point, the way that region is playing out. And for me, the reason I want that to happen is so my son, who is not 18 fucking years old yet, won't have to go.
Right.
Because it's going to be ugly. We are looking at a massive, level of war. I'm not saying that we're going to be world war, but we are talking about a lot of big players, heavy hitters, that it's going to be ugly. It's going to be really fucking ugly.
Well, I think that we have multiple fronts happening right now with multiple different nations who are considered adversaries that are all at tipping points. You have Russia with the invasion of Ukraine, and us and other nations fighting essentially a proxy war by helping out Ukraine to fight back Russia. You have China-Taiwan situation, all right? Another one of those major superpowers that's allied with Russia. You have North Korea, who can't figure its own shit out, all right? Just throwing them in for fun. Iran, who is allied with China, Russia, who is fighting their own essentially proxy war against Israel here. My fear is that Israel is going to step up what they're doing, and they are going to cause some major shakes to happen, whether that is
on the
carpet bombing or something like that. And that's when Iran is going to step in and say, no, this isn't Hamas anymore. Now you're fucking with us because you're fucking with Muslims. And when that happens, then Big Brother has to step in. That's when the U.S. is going to come in and say, oh, if you want to play ball, now we're going to play ball.
Well, who wins? Israel and Iran. No, Israel and Iran.
If we just split those two, I think Israel would still roll Iran.
Right.
Israel
they very well could.
They are so technical.
Who does Iran bring in? Because that's
the problem.
That's the other part. Well,
I don't know
that it's as much of the problem as much as it is like, look, even though they have friends, everybody's got friends, right? But those friends are still going to be like, all right, look, I know Israel and Iran are going at it right now, and if we jump in this party, we're probably going to have America come and fuck us, So like, there's still going to be some second guessing. Like, what does what does that do for China if they jump in? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that Russia, it's guaranteed.
Russia's like the most likely to kind of help out.
They're jumping in.
Maybe
Russia's already at war.
That's the problem, is that they've already got one conflict going on, one strategic military operation or whatever, and it's not going great, right? It's
Russia
way more protracted.
Rolled Ukraine inside of a month.
Yes, it's way more protracted than it should be for them. So they've got their own shit to deal with.
Right.
They can't be like focusing on two fronts there. China, they could step in, but I don't know if they want to, because I think China is way less about fighting wars and stuff and more about economic and global takeover.
Right.
They're going to sit back and they're going to invest in whatever way they need to in order to get more of a financial and economical foothold in the geopolitical space.
Exactly.
And I think that if Iran steps in, China's going to be like, ping, ping, pong, pong. I don't have anything to do with you right now because I'm doing some other cool shit.
And I think Israel rolls every single one of those countries over there.
They probably do. But I'm assuming, since we brought in our 2 strike carrier groups and aircraft carriers into the region, that we're probably going to be like, we want a little too. And we'll help out.
I cannot wait for, I don't know, have you guys ever seen the clips on like TikTok of not mandatory fun day? The guy who's, would you intercept me? I'd intercept me.
I sent a couple of those out.
Yeah. If it does happen and the F-22 finally gets to fucking intercept somebody and engage with somebody, I can't wait for those videos to come out.
Yeah.
Now, guys, we get it. We're talking about war. We're not supposed to laugh, but we are talking with people who've been to war. It's not the same for us as it is for you.
Yeah, it's not that, and like you kind of said,
it's a coping mechanism. We're just laughing to cope.
You're hoping for this war to happen and end. I doubt that we all want war to happen.
No,
peace would be great. If there is a peaceful solution, but we're looking at this as inevitabilities, and we also like to take worst case scenarios into effect, just because plan for the worst, hope for the best, right?
Yeah.
That's bred into us. All right. So if it does come to fisticuffs, yeah, I think Israel is probably able to slap dick, and we are going to help them out, and we'll slap dick too. And does anyone else want to join into the Royal Rumble or not? And I think that most people won't want to, because if someone else tries to step in, that's when I think you really kick off with the rest of Europe.
Well, the UN,
and stuff like that. That's when everyone else is like,
well, if we go, NATO's got to go. Like it's like I almost have to.
Yeah, but their actual role will be way less significant. I mean,
you know who really wants to get involved is the fucking Pakis, Pakistan and India. Like those guys want to fucking fight.
Well, they want to fight each other.
They do, but like India, for the most part, has kind of been foaming at the mouth for this.
They want to go. They want to get Kashmir back. They want to fucking take a whole bunch of shit back. Yeah. So if a world war pops off, they can just toss in the fact that they're occupying Kashmir now, and then we're not going to even think about that because there's a world war going on.
But that's the thing, is that Pakistan, or not Pakistan, India, they're ready to back Israel in this,
right?
Which, again, the geopolitical space over there just confuses the fuck out of me. I feel like if Israel ended up having to go fight Iran, that it's going to be little brother them, big brother us, and then out of nowhere, pardon my language, the retarded stepchild brother is going to run in out of nowhere from India, start beheading motherfuckers and doing crazy shit because they want their land too, and we're all going to kind of step back and be like, whoa, what the fuck? Who invited you? But that's when shit's going to get crazy.
Rick killed the guy.
Yeah.
No,
Go ahead,
I
Matt, hop in here, brother. We've been talking a lot. Go ahead, hop in here.
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I honestly, I mean, I don't disagree with any of that, and I hope, I don't hope, like you said, I don't. Nobody wants war, and my thought process, like you, Mike, is I do think that it's inevitable, right? I think that
What
I
it feels
don't
right now, right?
see, yeah, I don't see a path forward for Palestine and Israel, a two-state. I don't see that path forward without war, um, and not without and I guess the other part of that coin would be us, if we were to step in and stop a war by almost enforcing a two-state, right? Then that's all still just temporary. That's all still temporary, unless you know what I mean. It can't just be through threat like that, and we would have to be willing to act on that threat.
That's
too.
the two kids in school that want to fight and it gets broken up by the teachers.
Exactly.
They're just gonna wait till they
It's
get
gonna
out of school
happen.
and go meet behind the bleachers.
So my thought on that on the war, like let's get it started. It's already started, but I hope that it gets through, and I think that it's inevitable. I think it's going to happen. I think that I don't think that we need to play a major role in it, because I don't think that there's going to be. I think Iran will step in, and then no one
And let
else is
that
going to come
happen.
in from there. What I would actually see happen more is after Iran and Israel go at it, and Israel, depending on how weak they become from that war, then some things afterwards, maybe some other Muslim countries, that are the surrounding Jordan and them, they ban up like they did back in the 6 Day War, and they try to take advantage of a beaten dog in that moment. But I don't even know that it would even come to that, like if they would even get to that point. But I don't think that it's going to be an immediate. Everyone jumps into the ring. I think everyone's going to be sitting back, watching, waiting to see exactly which way the tide is going before it happens, and there's a decent chance that the tide goes in the favor of Israel, to where no one, like, they just like, all right, well, this is not a fight I want to join.
Yeah. In reality, I'm sure that there is probably ways that we can, and I guess the term would be the proxy war here, since we do know that a lot of this Hamas funding and training and equipment is coming from Iran. The thing that sucks is that we just gave them another $6 million.
Well, that's exactly
Right.
Billion, not million, billion with a fucking B.
With a B.
So we've
Yeah.
already financed Hamas's side. So we're
Now,
going to go and finance
we
the
can
Israeli
be-
side?
That money is still locked away.
Right? Yeah.
Sure. Let's check the
which-
coffers. But the thing is that I'm sure that there is ways that we can thwart the enemy, Iran, through cyber warfare, different things like that. I mean, the
Well, I'm sure that stuff's already
technological space that we can step in and basically cripple them before they're able to start something, but not have a digital signature on it to say like, hey, this is USA, suck our dicks from the back. Like, I'm sure that there's ways that we can do that, where if they wanted to step to the plate and do something, we could kind of stop that before it starts and not have to leave a calling card for it, even though everyone will know what the fuck happened.
Everybody's gonna
Israel
know.
is probably capable of doing a lot of that too, to be real about it. So that's in general. I get asked this almost once a day, I think, by my lady. Is there going to be a draft? I keep on seeing TikToks about women getting drafted. I'm like,
oh, you're going to say, am I getting dick?
I was like, I wouldn't worry about that.
There's only one way. There's only one way there's a draft, and that's if we go to World War.
World War, yeah.
World War. Because
Yes.
guess what? If we go to a World War, major scale, nation on nation, force on force, we are absolutely going to have to institute the draft, because the military has scaled back over the last 5 years. Like,
there's chances are 2 to 3 of us in this conversation are also going to be going back to do shit, whether we want to or not.
Ain't fucking gonna be me.
I mean, I don't physically know if the army would. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't accept me right now, but I probably would step in. Like,
I'm at
I
100% disability. I don't think they would take me.
They might not have a chance. They'd be like, "Hey, you sit your butt in this drone seat."
Yeah. Well, you know what? If I can keep my
We'll get
beard,
a handicap.
not do a fucking PT test ever again, and I can sit in a fucking shelter and fly a drone, you know what? I'd do that.
Beards are
Especially
pretty common now, man.
What do you
I know,
think?
I know.
What do you think that would look like for America after the completion of a world war, another world
Right
war?
now, so I was going to bring this up to you guys because we've been talking a lot about the region and the things that have gone on, and I've actually seen a lot of people on Twitter who are kind of on, they're on more on the right wing side for sure. They're like, oh well, we don't want this. Our military's in travesty right now because we're letting these people in and this, and we're coming up with all these rules. And for me, I don't understand. Like, even as somebody who got out of the military, I loved being in the military. Now that I'm out, I fucking love it even more because I'm not doing all the army shit.
Yeah.
But
Talk
like,
shit about it from our chairs.
yeah, exactly. But to have the mindset that like we're not gonna go absolutely just fucking dick whip somebody is interesting to me, and why we're having that thought, because we are the most technologically advanced military by fucking light years.
Yeah.
And it, like, I don't know why we're having that conversation. Like, oh, we can't, shouldn't be in there because we'll get our asses kicked. This is the downfall of America.
Yeah.
And this is just rhetoric. This is disinformation that's coming out from people saying we're turning it a religious situation in the Middle East over land into a political situation in America. And it doesn't make any fucking sense to me.
There are a few facts in the world. The one fact is, if we go into World War, America is still kicking dick in. It doesn't fucking matter, right? Like people don't really understand, even at our, oh, we are downsized, we are this, the sheer size and power of America's military force. Even at our lowest, we're still up here. You know what I mean? And especially, I feel like the civilian populace that has never dealt with the military.
The only fear that I have of World War is nuclear capabilities, because it's not,
agreed.
It's not like, oh, we can't beat that. It's the mutually assured destruction part.
Absolutely.
And who's going to end up being crazy enough to pull that trigger? If we were allowed to fight every other way, I mean, I guess the one caveat to that would be a cyber. If China shuts down our
China would be into the cyber thing. They would kick our ass there.
If they're shutting down our electrical grid, we're pretty fucked. Like that's really bad. Not that we wouldn't be doing the same thing there,
right?
But it would be pretty fucking bad. Like that would be a lot of civilian loss of life here in the States. But if we're just talking military versus military, yeah, I'm not too scared about that. But like, we have a very different military than we did 20 years ago when we entered into the Iraq, Afghanistan campaigns. We allow women into more occupations. We allow
treading into that canceled speech.
That's fine. We allow transitioning soldiers and things like that. A lot of things that people are saying are weakening our military. We're having a much more loving, caring military. My counter argument to that, and while I do get all those points, and I agree with some of them, we are so much further technologically advanced that it makes up for tenfold all of those letdowns that you will. And at the end of the day, that technology coupled with our tier 1 units, which are the best in the fucking world, Delta, SEALs, all those ODAs, all of that, those other guys that boots on the ground are going to make big time differences. And then our technology is going to fill in all the gaps.
Yeah.
I agree. The only tier 1 units in the world that can even come close to what we have reside in fucking Israel with Mossad.
I think that there would be a question about Spetsnaz. But even then, I don't know anymore.
Yeah, Spetsnaz is good, but yeah. I mean, like, I'm not worried about us losing. No. That is, but you know, that American home front thing, like, okay, this is going to be bad. We're going to go to war. We're going to lose because of all the things that are going on. My more main concern, because I do not at all worry about us losing a war, world war, none of that. We'll go fucking 3-0, no problem.
Right.
What I do worry about, though, is the things that we're seeing, not only in America, but in European countries. We see some absolutely repugnant shit going down in Australia. We are seeing mass protests that are pro-Palestinian, and I'm going to say pro-Palestinian with some quotes because they are, but that's not the way they necessarily finish. We are seeing things like gas and burn the Jews coming out during these rallies. We are seeing some very anti-Semitic rhetoric being thrown around all across the world, and it's being done in the name of free Palestine.
Right.
Maybe people don't understand the things that are coming out of their mouth and the repercussions of the words, what those words have.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me either. There can be mutually exclusive things. Palestine can be its own place, but it doesn't have to involve gassing the Jews or eradication of a people. Like that is Nazi speak.
It is absolutely 100% Nazi speak. And why are we blind to the past at this point of what happened to the Jewish people during World War II? That we are going that we would say that?
The progressive nature of the world. I mean, the progressive nature of the world is that we look for things in our past to say we're bad, so that way we can progress and become better. You don't have to progress past certain things and say that these things are bad. I mean, like slavery, bad, right?
Yep.
We can progress past that. But when we start getting into talks of what's the fucking word? Reparations and things like that. Like I don't know that fixes our past. Not this far into the future. There's things that we can do to be progressive without completely throwing out the past. And I feel like so many people are looking for something to be mad against from the past that it makes them be like, yeah, let's get rid of the Jews because, you know, maybe we made a mistake about World War II. And
maybe we made a mistake about killing Hitler.
Like
that's what it sounds like they're doing.
It's a lot of ignorant stuff like that. It's super easy to get in echo chambers online as well, and misinformation, Twitter bots, X bots or whatever. All that shit. Like it's super easy to get wrapped up in that. And if you're bouncing around in that echo chamber, you're hearing nothing but it. It's pretty easy to grasp onto it and start to make it your own thing that you're promoting, which isn't the right thing.
Well, 90% of these kids, and I say kids, I mean, there's a lot of young folk, but there are still some obviously our age and maybe even older who are in there. But we live in a world in echo chambers, right? We live in a world where their attention spans about an inch long, and they only get their news about 30-second clips. You know what I'm saying? And the algorithm makes sure that those 30-second clips are all following the same theme, you know.
Pick this seat up, so I drop mine down.
No, I just sat up a little bit. I'm gonna go for a second. I may or may not be back, but thank you for the conversation. If I'm not back today, boys.
All right, brother.
Duty calls.
Yep.
Go get it done. But yeah, and I think we live in that world where it ties into some other things that aren't even related to this at all. To where really, you also have a lot of people who are out there for their own selfish attention, really. I mean, they just want to, they want, like Eva was saying, they want something to bitch about, essentially. They want to be heard, or they want to get their attention. And what better way than to be a part of a protest, no matter what the protest is for, especially if the majority of the individuals in that protest are leaning to the same political side as you, you know? Right. And it's sad, really, because what they're protesting, they don't. I'm going to say that most of them probably don't really understand what they're actually thinking.
I hope that they don't, because if people really knew the meaning behind some of the things that were coming out of their mouths when we're talking about, you know, getting rid of Israel, and I mean, when you say gas the Jews, I mean, there's not really any other fucking way to take that other than you're a Nazi.
How is that even acceptable? Nazism. How is it even acceptable? Like, how can we even listen to that and be like, I don't know. It's mind-boggling to me.
I don't get it. But like, and it's so the thing that I'm talking about where they were saying gas the Jews. Apparently, that happened in Australia. I've never been to Australia. I don't know the political views in Australia. But I can tell you that anytime you're on the side of Hitler, you're almost certainly fucking wrong.
On the wrong side.
Yeah, you're on the wrong goddamn side.
You have found yourself in the deep end. Please make your way back to the front.
And there are like college students here in the United States. I mean, the most notable one, there was a group of students at Harvard who all signed a letter saying that Israel was entirely responsible for the attack that Hamas committed that ended with the loss of life of 1,400 civilians.
Yeah. There was actually 30. I heard that, and someone will probably correct me, but I heard there's like 34 different groups of colleges, including Harvard, that did the similar things. And since then, quite a few of them have retracted.
They're trying to pull that shit back.
Yeah, they're trying to retract it because they're like, oh shit, like, whoops, we didn't mean that. We just thought we were being progressive. We didn't actually know what the hell we were signing. We just seen that the dude that I knew that was holding the clipboard was a Democrat.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This is virtue signaling at the
highest
order, and it's the
most
worst
detrimental order
fucking time that you could try to do it.
Right.
I don't understand. And listen, I am now a college student. I attend a college campus.
Yeah, high five. Me too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah,
finishing up my degree finally.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But I have not really seen any of these protests or anything like this on my college campus. I don't know if there is a certain why. What? Maybe it's certain groups, but I don't want to point the finger and be like, oh, these Muslim groups are saying that the Jews are bad and that Israel should not exist, because it's not just Muslims. There's a whole collection of people.
Right.
Like something that we talked about before the show started. Matt, you brought it up. Jews for Palestine.
Oh, yeah. I literally just had watched a video about that. It was Jews for Palestine, and I'm like, what? That doesn't even make sense. It's like saying Jews for Hitler. You know what I mean? Like, what do you even mean? Like, what do you actually?
Palestine as a country, fine. If you're talking about anything that deals with Hamas, if you're supporting Hamas, it's outrageous. And I agree with what you're saying. Go ahead, man.
Right. And you know, and I get the idea somewhat is like, okay, they're separating Hamas and Palestine. They're trying to separate it. But like you had mentioned earlier, why is Hamas a power?
Yeah.
They were voted in, you know, and it's not to say that the Palestinian people or even Muslim people are for this, like as a whole. Like I'm not even saying that. I'm not saying that at all. But the idea that the majority of people over there probably don't have, or at least aren't on their way to being convinced. And when I say over there, I'm meaning in Palestine or in Gaza. Yeah, I'm gonna mess that up this whole time, right? The West Bank and all that aren't at least on their way to that, especially now that this war is kicking off. I mean, imagine the propaganda that is being pushed by Hamas in there. Jeez. You know, so sure, I don't think that that's the general idea to exterminate the Jewish people and necessarily, but I do think that those areas and those populations are on their way to that, if not already in that general idea, you know. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's very tough. It's very interesting to see the way that a place like in Australia or places in Europe, France, and you see all these mass gatherings, and like I understand protesting for Israel to not kill innocent civilians. 100%. Nobody wants to kill innocent. No, Israel should be doing as good a job as they can to avoid civilian casualties. They're going to happen. Mm-hmm. That's a nature of war, and that's why it's uglier than hell. But like, why are we getting the extra pieces? This mob mentality that has just kind of been taking over just large groups of people in America and other countries for shit. It feels like the last decade. Yeah. We have had these massive mob mentalities. We see it in America in political spheres all the time. And I understand a little bit of the vitriol, but when you get to the extremes, when you get the gas the Jews, that it's wrong. It's 100% unequivocally wrong.
Yeah, and on that same token, I forget what political figure said this, and it was a right leaning political figure, female, and where she said basically to level Gaza, right?
And that's wrong.
And I thought exactly. I think the same thing. Like even on that stance, I think that both ways was like when I heard that clip from that, I was like, why? What is this idea that this needs to happen? I know we talked earlier about the war is probably inevitable, and there's gonna be blood on both sides of it. And I'm glad that they haven't just carpet bombed the area,
Yes.
but you know, it's good. Those things are gonna happen, though. Probably, you know,
they are gonna happen.
It's gonna suck.
It sucks.
And I hope it does. You know, I don't know. It's such a shitty conversation, right? It's so hard because where do you sit? That's why I always lean towards the whole let's just sit out of this, and you got to let countries kind of work through it. You know, we can't just sit here and try to referee every single conflict that happens in the damn world, because for one, you're just pacifying it for a short time while it continues to boil and boil and boil and boil and simmer and get worse and worse and worse. And that only lasts for so long. And, you know, you can't be a friend to everybody either, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So,
you absolutely can't be a friend to everybody. And I don't know who said just carpet bomb them, but that is the kind of speak that needs to be thrown out.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
It's the same thing as the gas the Jews, level Gaza. Those are the same fucking. You're saying the same thing. You're just picking tails instead of heads.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same side.
Yeah, and when you get into, it's so tough for me to be like to listen to somebody who has never been in that position, who's never taken a life, who to say just murder all of these people. Like people don't understand. Like you always get the guys like, oh, if I were on the plane during 9/11, there's no fucking way that would have happened.
Oh yeah, I would have stopped them. I would have
stopped them. Or if there was a shooting at wherever, I'd have gone out and I'd have got it. Like, shut the fuck up.
Right.
You don't know what you would do because you've never been in that situation, and you don't fucking want to be in that situation. Exactly. Point blank, period. So.
Yeah, your rational thinking isn't normally there unless you've trained yourself for it to be there in those situations. You know, so rationally trying to put yourself in that position and put yourself in that scenario and telling anyone what you would do, and that like that's ignorance. You know, even myself, and I'm sure you could speak to this as well. Like you still even knowing the control it would take in a scenario like that, it's still hard to have control. You know what I mean? And have clear mind and have clear, concise decision-making skills. You know,
well, I mean, do you remember your first strike?
Oh yeah.
Fucking adrenaline jacked through the roof, right? Like there's almost no thought going on. You're just going off of the instinct that you have trained numerous times.
I'm saying this 9 line over the radio, and I don't even know why or how, but it's just coming out because
because I have trained it. I have done this. But your adrenaline is so fucking jacked. There's absolutely the logical thinking is not there. So
it's
when people are like, I would have done this, you probably wouldn't have. You probably would have been fucking hiding. You would
or calling your family to try to leave a voicemail. You know what I mean? To say I love you. You know what I mean? It's.
So we need politicians, especially here in fucking America, to stop saying let's bomb the shit out of all these people. Let's carpet bomb Gaza. We're in a holy war, but we also need the opposite to stop happening as well. We cannot have politicians saying there should be a ceasefire. We didn't have a ceasefire after fucking 3,000 Americans were killed in 9/11. You know what we did? We went to war for 20 years. That's exactly what the fuck we did.
Right.
Like, why are we now standing on some sort of moral high ground being like, oh, no, 2 wrongs don't make a right? You're right. Well, you know what? 2 wrongs don't make a right. It makes
Right.
fucking equity.
It's true.
I like that line, by the way.
Yeah, I like that. I like that one. No, I agree, man. I agree. It's a shitty situation all around. I just don't want to see our boys go to war for it, and I don't want to be printing money for it either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my biggest thing.
I'm done shelling out billions of dollars to fight proxy wars.
Especially 'cause it's like, yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't want to see I don't want to see innocent people die. They're gonna die. I don't want to, and I don't want this to be used as a political chip or anything like that, like the Ukraine war has been used. I don't want to see our economy go even more into shambles because of us using this as another reason to, well, we have to send money over there to support this, and we have to do that, and we it's like, no, we don't. We can offer advice, and we can protect we can protect ourselves if needed, and we can keep an eye on this as it progresses. And because we know, our military leaders know at which point we would have to intervene, right?
Yeah.
There's that line where they're like, okay, if we see this start to evolve, and this
Hezbollah is the line right now,
right, and that's when we know we need to intervene. Up until that point, we just need to sit back, and entertain whatever requests or whatever, and see if things make sense, if they truly make sense in that way of assistance, like putting our ships out there. I'm perfectly fine with that. I think it's a great show of force.
I mean, they were fucking close enough already anyway.
Right. It's a great show of support, and maybe it'll calm things down, but I think, I don't know. I worry. I feel that we've, as America, we've really fallen back between. We worry more about everywhere else more than our own country and our own people at times, and it really bothers me.
Well, and I mean, I don't want to get too political, but we're talking about, and if you guys didn't like some of the things I said before, you're going to fucking hate the next line that comes out of my mouth.
Hell yeah. Let's bring it on. Let's do it.
War's good for fucking business, guys. War's good for business. That's why we do it. That's why we do it all the fucking time. The military industrial complex, all your goddamn politicians, everybody's making fucking money off of the war, except for you, except for me.
Except for me. I'm not making any money.
Yeah. As somebody who was a defense contractor at one point, war's good for business, and it's ugly. It's ugly to say that, but it's the fucking truth.
It is, and you'd be ignorant to not think that it has an influence.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Like, when you consider how much money we spend every year on defense, like, it's insane. So, if things don't drastically improve, it almost feels like an inevitable thing.
Yeah, I agree, and that's not me hoping it does. I just can't. I don't see another way for it to not. The only thing I see is stringing it along, getting strung along.
Matt, do you got anything else you want to add to this conversation?
No, that's about it, man. That is about it. I think it was a good one, though.
Yeah, this was good. It was tough. It was there's some things in there that people are gonna fucking hate.
Yeah.
We'll see how many comments we get on this video. I'm gonna try to get this thing posted tomorrow. But Evo, I just texted him. He is not gonna be able to make it back. He's got some family stuff going on, so we're gonna wrap this thing up.
All right.
But guys, thank you. This is the talk. New show. Matt, I appreciate you. Evo, when you run this back and you see it, we love you. We appreciate all the conversation, especially the history lesson at the beginning. But
I would call it a sermon. He started off real strong, didn't he?
Nice. Yeah.
I loved it.
Very good. Very good. Nice little diatribe he had there.
Yeah, it was.
But guys, this is the talk. We'll be back a couple weeks, 2, 3. We'll see. I mean, we got so many things going on. work, families, all that stuff. But I love doing the show. It is a nice release. But with that, we're going to get out of here. Thank you guys very much. And then we'll see you next time around.
Deuces.
Bye-bye. Hard work.